Before I get started, I think that I certainly would like to extend a word of thanks to those who helped make today's Mother's Day presentation, worship service, something special and a little different than what we're normally used to and accustomed to. Craig with his music on One Bread, One Body. I don't know if you knew the tune or not, but we do usually use that song during communion. And he worked out a special...
Let me say it's an honor to be here and to play for all of you mothers. It's my pleasure. It's an honor for me as well.
But he worked out a special, rendition of that for, your reflection, and hopefully that will help your service, your worship service, be even more meaningful. I want to thank Dave for helping to lead worship. And we can never forget the people that are behind the curtain there, Rachel and Brian, who make the audiovisual piece of this special. Happy Mother's Day. After Easter and Christmas Eve, did you know that Mother's Day is usually the third highest attendance Sunday for most churches? Mom's Day in church ranks right up there, and it should. Let me begin with a little story. It starts out one afternoon when a man came home from work. As he drove up and parked his truck in the driveway, he noticed 3 kids, ages 6, 4, and 3, were all outside playing in the mud. There were several empty cereal boxes along with a lot of assorted chocolate candy wrappers scattered all over the yard. The front door was wide open, and so were his wife's wife's car. Walking into the house, the man found even a bigger mess. A lamp had been knocked over, and the TV was blaring out some cartoon show. A pile of sugar was dumped in his recliner, and a family dog was foaming at the mouth, running around aimlessly in circles and barking continuously. Obviously, it had been licking the sugar. There were dirty clothes scattered all over the living room, as well as tons of kids' toys thrown about. In the kitchen, dishes filled the sink, and a broken pitcher that once contained red Kool-Aid lied in pieces on the floor. The refrigerator door was wide open, and it appears the dog had dragged out several of the items, including a dozen eggs. Broken yellow egg yolks floated in a pool of red Kool-Aid. The man seeing all this was really getting worried. Had something happened to his wife? He quickly ran up the steps, tripping over more toys and piles of clothes. And as he opened the bedroom door, he saw his wife, curled up in bed, still in her pajamas, reading her favorite book. She looked up and smiled and asked him, "How was your day, dear?" He looked at her totally confused and said, "What in the heck happened here today?" She smiled again and answered, "Well, you know how every day when you come home from work and ask me what in the world I did all day? Well, today I didn't do it." While Mother's Day is an important holiday for many families, some don't celebrate it at all for a variety of reasons. Some people, for instance, want nothing to do with the holiday because it brings to mind the loss of their own mothers. Others may have memories of an abusive or dysfunctional family. And many parents struggle through memories of children who have passed or through their own infertility. Regardless of where each of us view Mother's Day, one thing is blatantly obvious. Without Mom, none of us would be here. Whether you sport an innie or an outie, you wear the trademark of your mom. Each one of us has been indelibly marked and impacted by our mothers, whether we like it or not. Our mothers have played a primary role in molding and shaping our lives. She is without a doubt a major influencer. Yet, it appears motherhood today is considered to be less important than a career or personal freedom. It seems as if motherhood and children simply get in the way of a woman living her life. However, motherhood is something God created and what he saw as good. Therefore, the first point I want to make is that mothers are important. To be a mother is a very good thing. Being a mother simply isn't a matter of birthing children. To think that is as absurd as believing that having a piano makes you a musician. It's not surprising that the secular world falls short of understanding what a mother truly is, because motherhood was God's idea. God knows what makes a good mother, and the Bible recounts many moms throughout the years. 1 Samuel tells us of a young woman named Hannah, who was married to a man named Elkanah. The theme of that book, like many other writings in the Old Testament, is that faithfulness to God brings success, while disobedience brings disaster. Elkanah and Hannah were very much in love. However, Hannah was infertile. However, Hannah isn't the first woman in the Bible to suffer infertility. Before Hannah, 3 other women endured the despair of not being able to conceive. Sarah, the wife of Abraham, she was the first, followed by Rebekah, the wife of Isaac, and then Rachel, the wife of Jacob. The difference, though, among the 4 women was that Hannah accepted God's promise with unwavering faith. The other 3 did not. Since Hannah was unable to have children, Elkanah took on another wife. And at that time, this was a very common practice. Having children was an important part of the culture, yet infertility didn't matter to Elkanah because he loved Hannah. He loved Hannah more than his other wife, Peninnah. However, Peninnah was remarkably fertile and gave birth to several sons and daughters. But that didn't seem to matter. Elkanah was deeply in love with his barren wife, Hannah, instead of the fertile Peninnah. Peninnah hoped that her ability to provide children for her husband would make him love her more than Hannah. And this belief caused substantial grief for both women. One wife was barren and wanted children, and one wife was fertile and wanted love. Can't you just sympathize with their pain? But instead of comforting each other, Peninnah's jealousy caused torment for Hannah, constantly mocking Hannah's inability to become pregnant. This went on for years. And all through this ordeal, Hannah demonstrated grace and dignity by holding her tongue as she continued to pray for a child. One day, Hannah visited the temple in Shiloh, praying silently. Eli, the temple priest there, noticed her, but he met her with more negativity. Eli accused her of being drunk and says to her, "How long are you going to stay drunk? Put your wine away." Once again, Hannah doesn't get defensive, but responds to Eli honorably. She explains that she is praying for a child, and she promised God that if he gave her a son, she would dedicate him to the priest. So after returning home from this visit to the temple, her prayer is answered the very next day. God honored her diligence and patience, and Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son and named him Samuel. She nurtured him for about 3.5 years until he was fully weaned. Then she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, a bushel of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When the bull had been sacrificed, Samuel was brought to Eli and dedicated to God's service in a special ceremony. Hannah said, "I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked for. So now I give him back to the Lord." Hannah and Elkanah continued to visit Samuel as he grew into a man of God. And each time before returning home, Eli would bless Elkanah and Hannah, saying, "May the Lord give you other children to take the place of this one that you have given to the Lord." While Samuel grew up in the presence of the Lord, Hannah had 3 more sons and 2 daughters. Interestingly, the Bible bears no further mention of Peninnah. Hannah trusted God without doubt or concern. Her story teaches us that our faith in God allows him to bless us. Her trust in God, her deep desire for children, and her faithfulness in bringing Samuel to God as promised show how God worked in Hannah's life. And as a mother, know God is working in your life as well. Every mother experiences circumstances that cause her grief. Many times, moms simply don't understand why the desire of their hearts is not met. Think about it. Sometimes the prettiest smiles hide the deepest secrets. The brightest eyes have cried the most tears. And the kindest hearts have felt the most pain. But in the life of Hannah, we see that God knows our hearts, that everything has a purpose, and trust in him is never misplaced. Hannah gave her firstborn son's life to God in love and honor. And we see how her actions foreshadow God's covenant with us. Hannah's story takes us from pain to joy, as does God's plan for salvation for us. Because of God's love for us, he gave his first and only son's life to restore our salvation. It's through our Lord Jesus Christ that we have been given favor with God and access to the grace that is able to save our souls. Mothers truly have had a huge impact in the world. I'm sure Jesus was influenced and shaped by his mother, Mary. John the Baptist was allowed to be the eccentric individual he was because he had an affirming, loving mother. Let's face it. How many of you mothers would allow your children to go out in public having never shaved and wearing clothes made of camel hair? How many of you mothers would tell your best friends you packed your son's lunchbox today with his favorite meal of locusts and honey? But don't be mistaken. Motherhood isn't some high-profile occupation. Being a mom is not a get-rich-fast endeavor, except maybe if you're a Kardashian. I've never seen a mom get her own line of Nike shoes named after her. But don't be fooled into thinking motherhood is not a very important role. It is. Don't let the lack of celebrity status ever lead you to believe that as a mother, you're not important. You are. Nothing in this world today is more important than the role of shaping the next generation. Moms have more impact on lives than anyone. There's a more recent story of a pastor's kid who rebelled in every conceivable way. Most everyone in the church had written him off, and many not so subtly. And they suggested that his mother do the same. Relentlessly, she held on to God for him. Then one day it came to a head when she was attending church camp. She entered the chapel, got down on her knees, and looked up to God and said, "I am not leaving here until you give me my son back, and I know that he will follow you." 3 hours later, she got up with her answer. And not long afterwards, her son found himself at a church altar, committing himself to Christ, and within months thereafter, attending seminary. Today, he's a pastor because of the tenacious commitment of his mother to prayer. So let us remember God's words from 1 Samuel, verse 30. "I will honor those who honor me, and I will treat with contempt those that despise me." As a mother today of younger children, see your children as a gift from God, blessing them daily, for they will not be with you much longer. And for you lucky enough to have your mom still living, recognize that she has given much, and now she should receive much. She is at the stage of life where she needs purpose. Her role has changed, but her desire has not. The fifth commandment, honor your father and mother, does not have a time limit or an expiration date. It's for life. For those of you who have lost your mom, not time nor space or even death will ever separate you from her. You always carry her inside you. And when you're missing her the most, feeling down, take a look at your belly button and reflect on her. She is with you. Today's story of Hannah is not about an infertile myrtle. It's about a woman, a mother, who prepared herself and her family for a fertile, abundant life in God in spite of overwhelming challenges and difficulties. Do mothers matter? I think the simple answer to this question is summed up in the ancient Jewish proverb. God could not be everywhere, so he made mothers. So when you think about your mother, whether she alive or past, realize that you are seeing the purest earthly love that you will ever know. And that's just a little taste of love God has for each one of you. Happy Mother's Day.